Hi, my name is Kumail. I am recording this video for my big data assignment. In this video, I will be implementing K-means algorithm in Python. This is the dataset that I will be using for my K-means algorithm. Firstly, I have read the dataset into a variable by using pandas library. Since we know that K-means algorithm is a branch of unsupervised learning, so I have assumed K as 2, which means that we will have two clusters, and these are the two lists representing the two clusters. These are the lists that will be used to compare to the next iteration, so we can identify whether we have segregated the datasets into the correct clusters. Since we have two clusters, we also need two centered points. I have selected the 0th element and the middle element of this dataset as my two centered points. We know that in K-means algorithm we have to clusterize the dataset multiple times since we get the correct segregated datasets. Coming onto the loops, I have a flag which will determine whether or not I have to terminate the loop or not. I have two temporary lists which will contain the updated latest values of the clusters, and these clusters will be used to compare with the previous iterations clusters and to identify whether we have the segregated datasets or not. This loop will iterate through each element of dataset and calculate its distance from centered points. Since it is the requirement of the formula of distance that we will have no negative signs in the distance, I am using the absolute function of Python to eliminate any negative sign. The distance of each element in dataset from the centered points will determine its cluster. For example, if the distance of an element in dataset is closest to centered point 1, then it will belong to the cluster 1, and if it is closest to centered point 2, then it will belong to the cluster 2. Coming out of this for loop, now we have to update the both centered points and copy the previous iterations into the current iterations. If the iteration is 0, we will not have obviously we will not have the previous cluster, so we will just update the centered points by taking the average of both clusters and copying the previous iteration into the current iterations. Else, if the iteration is not 0, then we will compare the current iterations clusters to the previous clusters. If they are same, then we know that we have the correct segregated clusters, and we will end the loop by setting the flag to false. If they are not the same, then we will do the same thing and update the centered points by taking the average of two clusters and copy the current clusters into the previous clusters. This will go on and on until we have the current clusters same as the previous clusters. Thank you. That was it. Peace.